Tonight, whistleblowers counting the cost. We talk to the insider who set the alarm bells ringing on the Commonwealth Bank.
It affects the way you relate to your spouse, your kids, your friends, your family. It's a burden that you carry.
I'm Andrew Robertson. You're watching The Business. Along with last week's scathing report on the Commonwealth Bank and ASIC, the Senate has recommended a raft of guarantees for whistleblowers. Witness protection, the insiders who blow the lid off corporate scandals. Slash the renewable energy target, the coalition's leg up for aluminium. And our psychic taking stock, the experts predict the future of the share market. First to today's trading on the share market, where banks and miners dragged the local bourse lower on the last day of the financial year. The All Ords slid nearly 1%. In Japan, the Nikkei moved ahead, Hong Kong's Hang Seng down slightly. Well, last week's Senate report into the corporate regulator dropped a bombshell when it called for a royal commission into the Commonwealth Bank over fraud and cover-ups in its financial planning arm. The inquiry also recommended better protection for whistleblowers, such as those who raised the alarm at the Commonwealth. Often seen as dobbing in their mates, whistleblowers speak out at great personal cost. Anita Savage investigates.
When financial planner Jeff Morris saw people losing their life savings because of misconduct within the Commonwealth Bank, he couldn't live with his conscience.
If I didn't do something, nothing would happen and the people would suffer.
For more than a year, he and two colleagues tried to raise their concerns with the bank and the corporate regulator ASIC.
If they're a watchdog, I think CBO's attitude was that ASIC would roll over and they'd tickle their tummy whenever they felt like it.
Jeff Morris says neither acted until he went to the media.
We could have acted more quickly, we should have been more transparent.
The case prompted a Senate inquiry, a damning report with calls for a royal commission and some compensation for victims. But for Jeff Morris, raising the alarm has taken its toll.
You lose a lot of sleep, you carry a lot of tension in you. It makes it affects the way you relate to your spouse, your kids, your friends, your family. It's a burden.
After resigning, Jeff outed himself as one of the whistleblowers. But most whistleblowers don't show their faces. One I interviewed was so scared we agreed not to identify him. These are his words, spoken by a journalist.
I had 4 blokes turn up at my door with baseball bats, and only a couple of nights ago I had 3 more blokes at my door, and one of them produced a shooter.
With 30 years' experience behind the wheel, this truckie was horrified by the pressures his employer was imposing on drivers.
We were working 18, 20 hours a day, drug abuse, heroin, ice, speed, marijuana.
Fearing for his own life, as well as the safety of others on the roads, he left the trucking industry. McCabe Transport is facing more than 200 fatigue-related charges.
Without whistleblowers, the world would be certainly a much worse place.
While head of the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, Professor Alan Fells went to great lengths making appeals for whistleblower information on television and in newspapers.
Most white-collar crime is secret, invisible, non-transparent, and it's not even known about unless someone from the inside tells you.
Alan Fells says it's not only individual informants who are scared.
Giant businesses, they fear that, the person they're complaining against will switch their business to someone else or punish them or charge higher prices or something.
In the United States, some whistleblowers are rewarded with cash incentives.
It can be such a setback for a person's career in a business, their future, that we should be thinking of giving rewards to whistleblowers.
There won't be any rewards coming from ASIC's purse. Budget cuts means it will be reducing surveillance and relying more heavily on whistleblowers.
We've actually strengthened our whistleblower protection, how we deal with whistleblowers. And
Many companies now have their own whistleblower policies in place, but unless they are absolutely independent and the regulator is perceived as trustworthy, most won't blow the whistle. Laws protecting whistleblowers vary from state to state. National protection laws for federal public servants came into effect earlier this year.
Legal protections don't really make that much difference. In fact, sometimes they give a false sense of security.
Health Services Union official Kathy Jackson broke down while telling the Royal Commission of the personal cost of bringing down two former union bosses.
I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act as an involuntary patient at the Austin Psychiatric Hospital in Melbourne. I had never been under such immense pressure or stress in my whole life.
While blowing the whistle on others, Kathy Jackson has now been accused of using thousands of dollars of union money on personal expenses.
Probably the most important thing is changing the overall culture so that speaking out about a potential crime or danger is seen as doing a good thing for the community as opposed to being a traitor to the organisation.
And until that happens, anyone thinking of blowing the whistle might want to think again.
Coalition backbenchers have launched a new attack on the renewable energy target. 25 government MPs have signed a letter to the Environment and Industry Ministers demanding an exemption for the aluminium industry from the scheme. But carbon pricing expert Ross Garneau says it takes business entitlement to a new level. Emily Stewart reports.
It's a coalition power play for the energy-intensive aluminium industry.
We really don't want to see a sector which provides 5,000 jobs, $3 billion in export dollars, vanish from this nation.
The renewable energy target to get 20% of energy from renewable sources by 2020 is currently under review and has been under attack from the federal government and industry.
RET is a very bad policy. It's causing increased energy prices generally.
More so for big power users like the aluminium industry, with electricity making up around a third of smelting costs. Even with a partial exemption, the current target is costing the industry more than $80 million a year.
There is nothing else that comes close to aluminium smelting in terms of its electricity intensity and its exposure to the RET. The 4 smelters that are running in Australia still consume about 10% of Australia's electricity on their own.
Australia is the world's 7th largest producer of aluminium. It has 5 operating smelters producing around 1.7 million tonnes of aluminium. The biggest, Boyne Smelters near Gladstone, produces almost 600,000 tonnes annually. But Alcoa's Point Henry is soon to close, and Norsk Hydro mothballed its Kurri Kurri smelter in 2012. Rio Tinto's Bell Bay is one of the smaller smelters, but it accounts for a quarter of Tasmania's electricity use.
The $8 million that we pay every year into the Renewable Energy Target scheme, we can't claim that from our customers. It actually puts strain on the business to the point that it potentially undermines our viability.
The renewable energy target is putting Australian producers at a disadvantage in global markets.
Like China, at 22 million tonnes a year, it produces more than 7 times its nearest competitor. Oversupply has pushed prices down, 40% less than the long-term average. Facing headwinds, the industry rejects comparisons with the car industry that it's seeking a special deal.
So we're not looking for something which is an ongoing subsidy. In fact, we're not looking for a subsidy at all. We're just asking not to pay a subsidy to another industry.
But economist and carbon pricing expert Ross Garneau says an exemption wouldn't be fair.
To exclude the aluminium industry from the costs of the renewable energy certificates, but to allow them a gain from wholesale prices being lower, would just be to take the business entitlement to a new level.
A government-commissioned review of the RET is due soon. Despite Clive Palmer's high-profile support of renewable energy last week, already one of his senators-elect has broken ranks, casting doubt on the future of renewable energy.
With the financial year ending today, it's a good time to look back at what industries are set to sink and soar in the next 12 months. It's not looking prosperous for some farmers and car makers, but building societies and super funds are on the up. In an exclusive, we reveal IBIS World's top 5 winners, as Enya Bjorgensen reports.
Number 5 is petroleum exploration, thanks to rising demand for gas and new technologies for extraction. Industry revenue is expected to jump 8% to around $4.5 billion. The dream of the white picket fence and your own patch of turf is still alive, with mortgages at number 4. Record low rates and a suite of government assistance packages has boosted demand for residential property, with lending expected to rise almost 10% in the